Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Lynda Lippin here, your host for the Pilates Goddess podcast. As you may know, if you're a regular listener to the podcast, I recently had a meniscus repair surgery to my left knee. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about what it felt like beforehand, what the surgery process is, how my rehab's going, um, and the role of Pilates and exercise both before and after the surgery. So, to back up a little bit, you should know, if you don't, that I'm 56. I have significant arthritis in most of my joints, including my knees. And probably 5 months ago now, I fell. And when I fell, I landed basically in a lunge. I was in that part of my gait where I was walking and my right foot was forward. And so I came down on my left knee in kind of a lunge. And apparently that fall, and then another one that I had about a week or two later, tore my meniscus. And it tore the medial meniscus, which is the inner meniscus. So first of all, a lot of us hear the term meniscus and really have no idea what the meniscus is or what it does. So I thought I'd just go into that for a second. So each of our legs has two menisci. The meniscus is basically a thick piece of cartilage that acts as a shock absorber between your thigh bone or your femur and your lower leg bones. It's a crescent shape, so pretty much between the medial meniscus and the lateral meniscus, what you get is kind of a circle of shock absorbing cartilage that, allows us to jump and allows us to really bear weight on our legs and the majority of the time fall and get back up without there being any issues. So what happens when you tear the meniscus, you basically put so much pressure into it via falling. Some folks do it doing really deep knee bends, things like that. And a piece of the cartilage kind of tears and ends up sticking out where it shouldn't be. The meniscus does not get tons of blood flow, not as much as, muscles and other tissues, and gets even less blood flow when you're older. But unfortunately, only about, I think, 30%, 25 to 30% of meniscus tears are successfully surgically repairable. A lot of times folks already have arthritis pain and the meniscus tear just kind of adds to that, but getting rid of the torn meniscus does not make the arthritis pain go away. Sometimes people tear their meniscus and discover that they actually need a whole knee replacement because there were other issues happening. In my case, when they looked originally at my x-rays, they were like, you do have significant arthritis in your knees, which I knew. And when they did the MRI, they were like, you definitely tore your meniscus. Now, prior to seeing the surgeon, because I knew that they were going to ask me to go to physical therapy beforehand, because that's just a given, I did that for myself. I started working as large ranges of motion as I could in terms of bending my knee and straightening my knee. I continued doing things like squats and lunges and walking, doing inner and outer thigh work, doing work in standing. I couldn't do work on all fours for a while, but then that got a little bit easier. But what was happening was that, number one, the presence of what we now know after they went in, looked at it, and removed it, the presence of my tear was actually what they call a parrot beak tear, because what ends up sticking out is a sharp triangle of cartilage. Mine was medial, so it was basically a sharp triangle of cartilage sticking out into all of the insertions of muscles into the inside of my knee. My pain was very specific, and it was in a really specific location. So once I got my range of motion back, once the Baker's cyst behind my knee had kind of drained and was gone, once I had my strength back, the issue was that I still had severe pain in that one spot where the meniscus was sticking out, and it was affecting my balance. It was affecting actually the arthritis, because it kind of made all of the inflammation around my left knee worse. It ended up starting to affect my left hip, where I also have some significant arthritis, because again, things in the body are connected, especially hip and knee. And I was to the point, and note that I have a really high pain tolerance. I've had chronic pain of some form for the majority of my life, that I was in pain all the time, and it was getting worse. And it got to the point where I had to use a cane. And I realized I had to get it dealt with. So when I first went to see my surgeon, and I'm going to tell you who he is. It's Dr. Casey Komperda at Mount Sinai Union Square down in Lower Manhattan in the Village. When I first went to see him, he said, you have severe arthritis. I said, I know, but I don't have knee pain from the arthritis. So this is new. And he was like, okay, good. That's a good sign. And then, he let me know the statistics on meniscus repair, although mine did seem to be one that could be easily repaired and dealt with. And then when he saw that I had already restored my full range of motion and in general my strength, but was just having issues dealing with the chronic pain situation and the balance situation, he was like, yeah, let's go in there and clean out that knee and see how you do. So I left, I got my surgery scheduled, and then I went in and had the surgery. So just things to note if you ever have to do this on your own, or for your knee, or for somebody you care about or love. Number one, it's, standard ambulatory surgery procedure where you're not eating or drinking after midnight the night before, because it's general anesthesia. I went in, I think around 11 or 11:30 a.m. My surgery ended up being done around 3 or 3:30. When I woke up after surgery, still, at Mount Sinai, my knee was wrapped. Like, it was big and puffy, and it had packing all around it, and was wrapped in a big ace bandage. I brought my own cane because I was using a cane anyway. So they just kind of walked me briefly through, proper cane use and proper cane mechanics. I got up, I had some water, I had some ginger ale, I ate the very dry graham crackers, and I was out of there by 5 and, home before 6. And we just took a cab home from there. After surgery, they gave me tramadol for pain, and they gave me aspirin to, just as a blood thinner to reduce the risk of clotting. I needed to, for the first several days, elevate my knee as much as I could. And we're talking elevate like toes higher than nose. I could not remove the wrapping and the packing until day 3, and couldn't take a shower until day 3. But on day 2, like literally the morning after surgery, I needed to start doing very specific exercises. And those exercises were not huge exercises, but I could tell they were important because they were really about straightening my knee all the way, getting it to straighten all the way, and really strengthening my quadriceps and my hip flexors. And I could see, exactly what the exercises were doing. And so basically, I just had to lie down and straighten my knee all the way, tightening up all my muscles and let it go, and do that up to 25 times built with a buildup. And then hold the knees super straight, flex my foot, and lift my leg up to about 45 degrees and hold it for up to 10 seconds. And that was another exercise that I needed to do, build up to 25 times. And then just pointing and flexing my feet. And I needed to do those exercises 4 times a day. So when I woke up day after surgery, I did those exercises 10 times, 4 times during the day, icing afterwards. Then I went to 15 times, then I went to 20, then I was up to 25. By the time I got to see Dr. Komperda, 2 weeks after the surgery, I had been doing, therefore, all of those exercises 25 times, 4 times a day, for 2 weeks, basically. But within, I think, 4 or 5 days, I was able to not use the cane anymore. After the 3rd day, on day 4, we unwrapped my leg. My surgery was on a Thursday. On Sunday, we actually unwrapped my leg. We got the packing off, and I was able to take a quick shower. I had 2 small incisions. There may be a half an inch or a little bit over a half an inch, and that was it. So I religiously did these exercises, did the 5 times a day, 20 minutes of icing with the elevation, all of the things. Within a week, I was going out on at least 1 dog walk a day. Usually the evening dog walk where my husband was with me. And for the first few, I used a cane. Then I kind of used him as I needed to. And now I'm able to walk fine. I really started to focus during those first weeks of walking on really walking, on doing a heel toe gait, making sure that I really shifted my weight from leg to leg. But I was careful at curbs, right? Because curbs are step ups and step downs, and I wasn't quite doing that yet, right, in my exercise strategy. Now, in week 2 after surgery, it was suggested that I try bicycling motions with my knee, right? Now, you could do that, of course, on a bicycle. But when I saw that I could start to do cycling motions, what I realized at that point was that that meant that I could start to bend my knee and bend my hip. And that the reason for doing the cycling was to start to reintroduce that range of motion of flexion into my knee, where I had spent an entire week working on extending my knee and straightening it. So instead of getting on a bike, I started to do some basic Pilates exercises after I did my straight leg work, that the doctor had given me. So I started doing some supine footwork, doing all the positions of heels together, toes apart, and knees together, and pointing and flexing my feet. And I slowly worked on increasing the range of motion of the flexion. I also started doing the ab series. So I was doing single leg stretch. Then I started doing leg circles and started working just on straightening and bending my knee while my hip was at 90 degrees or so, pointing and flexing my foot, doing ankle circles, doing all of those things. And I also started working a little bit on bridging. Because again, once I knew that I could start bending my knee, I started to do all of the things that I knew would help my body, within a relatively pain-free range of motion. Now, what was interesting was that at that point, it's not that bending my knee really hurt. I just felt like an odd pulling. Okay. So I would do the exercises. As I warmed up, I was able to go into slightly more knee flexion, more of a knee bend. And I just kept working on that. So by the time I got to my 2-week post-op appointment, I was able to do the subway stairs to get to Union Square without needing my cane. My cane folds up, so I brought it with me. But I did the stairs, and the stairs were fine going up and down. Did it hurt a little? Of course it did. But, I had just had knee surgery 2 weeks before. So I go in for my appointment. And at this point, I'm, done with the tramadol because they only give you about 5 or 6 days of that, which is good. And I was taking Tylenol and I was taking some over-the-counter Aleve or naproxen. So when I saw him, he, first of all, looked at my range of motion. He looked at my incisions. We talked about how I was walking, how I was starting to play around with curbs, stepping up and stepping down, using the left leg as well as the right leg. That I had started doing a little bit of work in abduction, just laying on my side with my knees bent and lifting up my leg. That I had started doing a little bit of inner thigh work, that I was, I told him all the things I was doing in terms of bridging, in terms of doing the, Pilates ab series, and all of that, and that I had done the stairs. And when they asked me to rate my pain level, I said, oh, my pain is probably a 5 or 6 out of 10, but it's because I did the subway stairs. And at the end of that visit, the doctor said, okay, number 1, let's give you the prescription naproxen because the dosing is very different between over-the-counter and prescription. With over-the-counter, you're either getting too low of a dose or too high of a dose, but nothing really in the range of the prescription. So he gave me that. And then he said to me, look, ordinarily, once again, I would send you to physical therapy right now. But frankly, with what you're doing on your own, you are way ahead of the curve. He was like, I didn't think you'd be doing stairs without a cane at the 2-week mark, which is pretty impressive. And he looked at me and said, I think you'll be bored in physical therapy. If you really want to go, I'll write you the script. But what I'm more inclined to do is print up my rehab exercise protocol, give it to you. You go do your thing for 4 weeks and come back to see me then. No restrictions. He said, you just do you. Just keep on going. So the minute he said that, the next day, I started playing with some squats or some standing footwork, as we call it in Pilates. And I obviously didn't do full range of motion. I did maybe 8 repetitions each, but I did all of it. I did heels together, toes apart, but with heels staying down. I came into the complete close stance, parallel, did hip width. Then I did a little bit in external rotation in a plie squat, and just some not really lunges, but more just kind of offset standing, just to play with how my weight was. Went into a little bit more of the sidekick series. Started working on extension, started working on swan, on single leg kick, on double leg kick, on swimming, on all of that work. And then I was able to start to come up into like an elephant downward dog shape and work squats there. So I was able to basically have my weight on my hands and my feet and then bend my knees almost touching the ground and stand back up. At the beginning, kind of middle of that third week, I tried weight bearing on my knee. That didn't really work so well. On all fours, I was really sore after that. So I bagged that. But I was able to start working deeper lunges while I was standing. I worked my way up to 12 to 15 repetitions on all the squats and all the lunges. Then started working on plie squats, right? So going one leg with one leg behind the other one, getting into a little more rotation there, a little more pivoting. I started working deeper lunges, and I started working on lateral movements from standing. So going into like side lunges and side squats without, again, a huge range of motion, both in parallel and in external rotation. And now I'm 3.5 weeks out. So I am solidly in week 4 of the rehab, or in the middle of that. And this week, I have 2 exciting things. Is number one, I'm walking pretty fully without pain. I am able to step up and down with both legs without worrying about it, which is exciting. And I'm able to weight bear on the knee. I can be on all fours now. I can do some cat and cow now. I'm not quite getting to lifting one leg up and just weight bearing on the one knee, but I'm sure I'll be there by the end of the week. And I'm really, really excited about that. I started now bringing the Thai 4 out. I brought some weights out. I upped my repetitions on everything. And the second very exciting thing, in addition to being on all fours, is how when you sit in a tailor sit or a crisscross applesauce, there is one leg that you prefer tucking under you first, right? And typically when I go into that cross, my right ankle is underneath my left ankle. So my left ankle is kind of tucked in, right, to my right leg. And I have not been able to do that since I fell and tore the meniscus. And yesterday and today, I was able to sit in my old crisscross applesauce position with very little pain and discomfort. And I'm really excited about that. Now I'm still icing and elevating basically 3 to 4 times a day. I'm using a little bit of Aspirin cream. I'm now done with the naproxen. I'm not on any Tylenol or taking anything. And my knee is doing really, really well. An interesting story is that, I've talked to a few people who went to physical therapy after a meniscus repair surgery. And basically, and I said to them, so what did you do? Because I want to know, am I missing anything? And they were like, no. Basically, they would go in, they would get heat for 15 to 20 minutes, bike for 15 to 20 minutes, other exercises for 15 to 20 minutes, maybe some electric stim. And by the way, if I needed it, I have a TENS unit here. I can do that. And ice for 15 to 20 minutes and maybe an IT band stretch. Well, guess what? I can do all of that here. Okay. I can warm myself up. I can do the exercises. I can ice afterwards. And I get on a parasetter or a roller every single night. And I do quad stretching, hamstring stretching, IT band stretching, piriformis stretching, all the stretching. And I'm feeling really great. The other piece of this puzzle that's really interesting to me is my energy levels are much higher now, and I realize how much pain I really was in. Okay. One of those things where you don't really realize how bad it was until it's over. So I was clearly in a lot of pain for a long time. I was exhausted by kind of 4:30, 5 o'clock every day. And now I'm not, even though I'm less than a month out from a surgical repair. So there you have it. So I go on June 6th. I believe this episode is going to come out on the 23rd. June 7th, sorry, is my next post-op appointment. And I'm kind of excited to go and show off to Dr. Komperda how well I'm doing. I also, and I'm not saying this to any of you to say that you don't need to go to physical therapy or you don't need those things. I want you to understand that I have been doing what I do for over 35 years, that I am one of the most sought out Pilates and fitness teachers in the world. And there's a reason for that. And what's also very exciting for me right now is that I'm experiencing the benefits of that for myself. Some of this has to do with age, because I can tell you right now that when I was a lot younger, my husband can attest to this, I was not always as kind and careful with myself and with my own body. I would say that I was, or that I was going to be, but then I wasn't. And so I always needed to go to PT or go to a trainer or go to somebody to deal with the issue. And with this one, I decided to give myself some grace. I decided to follow the doctor's orders. I decided to do for myself and treat myself the way I treat my clients. And here we are 3.5 weeks later, and I am walking, I'm doing at least 2 dog walks a day. I go shopping. I'm not really limping until maybe the very, very end of the last dog walk in the evening. And I'm sure that will go away soon. My energy's back. I'm getting stronger again, and I'm feeling a lot better. So there you go. There's my little kind of peek behind the scenes of what it's like to have knee surgery, what it's like to have the meniscus repaired. Unfortunately, I can't give you a great insight into going to physical therapy after something like this, but hopefully I'm giving you an idea of what the strengthening process looks like after. I also highly recommend, if you're going into any kind of joint surgery, whether it's to clean out the joint, deal with cartilage, replace a joint, partially replace a joint, replane, whatever it looks like for you, it's really, really helpful to get your body strong and mobile as much as possible before the surgery. Because then when you go into rehab, you have a base to start from. And if I didn't have the base to start from, I would have been in much worse shape. I know that I would have. And my final tip to anyone who goes for any kind of ambulatory surgery, especially if you're scheduled for your surgery later in the day and not first thing in the morning, is make sure you have some electrolyte replacement at home. Whatever that looks like for you. You want a vitamin water, you want a Gatorade, you want Nun tablets, you want liquid IV, whatever it is, make sure you have some electrolyte replacement, because when you wake up in the hospital, they're going to give you soda, they're going to give you juice, they're just going to try to get glucose into your system if they can. They may give you some water, but they actually prefer to give you things with sugar to get that in your body. And they're going to give you some kind of carbohydrate heavy snack with sugar. But they're not going to replace your potassium, your magnesium, your sodium levels. And so I found that when I got home, I felt much better after I drank an electrolyte replacement. Much better. And it helped my body kind of get through processing the anesthesia, and the pain meds and the antibiotics and all the other things that they push through your system while you're under having surgery. So that's it for me, guys. I hope you found this interesting and useful. If you have any questions, any concerns, please reach out to me. As always, Lynda@LyndaLippin.com, or DM me or leave a comment on any of my social media or in my free Facebook group, Strong Bone Pilates or Pilates Teacher Mastermind. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.